with me and Ryan in Agent Outreach Live every Tuesday, and we thought it would be a good idea to break things down and show you how to without having the whole screen blurred. So Ryan, let's kind of talk about, maybe why agent outreach is important for maybe anybody following along and doesn't quite know.
So it's probably easier to answer why not agent, or why wouldn't you go do agent outreach?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, obviously there's a million different ways to make money in real estate. Agent outreach, I think, is the best because there is so many different opportunities that come from just one agent relationship. So from deals being sent to you, to finding buyers, to maybe they even are the buyer. On top of that too, I think the biggest difference between agent outreach versus like direct to seller marketing is, and if people lie here, you just got to be honest with yourself. How likely is it you're going to go and do multiple deals with a seller as opposed to doing multiple deals with an agent?
Yes.
So we always teach that with agents, if you can find the true best agent out there, you can get multiple deals every single year. So we've got a database of about 40 agents that will bring us multiple deals every single year. And if it's even 2, that's 80 transactions a year from just 40 realtors. So agent outreach is the backbone to my entire business. Obviously, we do a lot of MLS deals, but also, who do you think lists properties on the MLS? It's agents. So I'm super excited to be able to share with everybody the agent outreach section of BatchLeads. This has been something that I was begging for years, and they had listened. So now it is able to be shown. We are going to teach you guys the ins and outs, and kind of like Landree had mentioned, there's some things that we are kind of restrained from being able to share within YouTube boundaries. So we are going to share it inside the webinar, the entire system inside and out, how to export leads, what filters to go through, and then even possibly some scripts that you guys should use to get started.
That would be super helpful. Okay, cool. So let's go right into my BatchLeads account. So you're going to be able to find this for anybody that's jumping into either your already existing account and trying to take action as we're going through Agent Outreach Live together every single week and you taking the action, or if you're brand new and kind of getting started. And of course, you can always go to the help center or in the community. You guys can find a ton of other resources for anything else, but let's just focus on this. So in Agent Outreach, you're going to start in the search side. And where do you think we should search? We can go
Well,
anywhere.
you know what? Let's start in Arizona just because obviously it's competitive, but I think it's worth showing people that you could filter it out by Phoenix, you could filter it out by specific cities within Arizona. Our whole goal is to show you that first off, the data is there. From there, obviously, you can narrow it down based on specific filters, by specific markets, or whatever it is that you wanted to filter it out with. So the first one we're going to look at is Phoenix, Arizona. The coolest thing about this, just as a quick side note, if you were, for example, trying to figure out first name, last name of a specific agent's phone number, you could look up by their first name or last name and see who would pop up there. And I just want to show everyone too, if you wanted to go just from the standpoint of being able to search specific realtors, you could do so. So obviously, if you were to go by just Phoenix, it would pop up every single realtor that is licensed in Phoenix. Landree, this data is updated. Is it daily? Is it weekly, monthly? It seems like it's pretty accurate from every time I've messed around in it so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So basically, anytime that we're getting the data from many providers and vendors, you guys will have the data. It's kind of the idea. So same thing with when you're pulling lists of sellers and buyers. That's what we want to do, is provide the best data.
And so we could filter it by location. We could filter it by first name and last name. What I actually like too is that if you are able to find an investor-friendly brokerage, like if you saw on there Stunning Homes Realty, Stunning Homes Realty actually is shut down. We moved over to Real Broker. But the cool thing is that if I could find an investor-friendly brokerage like Stunning Homes Realty, I could type in the office name, the brokerage name of that investor-friendly brokerage, and take the entire data of that brokerage and start calling them too.
That's awesome. And would you say, with that note of the name of the brokerage, is it, I know that we've talked about this a couple times in the show, but does it matter if somebody's at like XP Realty compared to one of those other that are going to be under a like super unique name when you're reaching out to agents, or like who cares? Like what would you say?
I hate giving the answer of it depends, but I think it really does depend on the brokerage. So like some of the bigger named ones where there's thousands and thousands of agents, it's going to be a little bit harder. But if you can have one specific where okay, this is a smaller boutique mom and pop shop, or this is just a brokerage that's known for being investor friendly, I think that's really like a good opportunity.
Okay, cool.
But I'm actually more excited to share what the filters are below that.
Yes.
So the active listings, the sold listings, total sold, that is where the money's at. And I get a lot of people are going to be like, well, Ryan, there's a lot of different filters. There's a lot of different markets. This is basically like the directory of realtors. Like, how do I pinpoint what the best realtor is to go for? I'm going to share with you guys some of the best things that I do and some of the best practices that I think you could do too. But with that said, just take it with a grain of salt and test the data. So understanding, first off, we have to identify that we're going to do agent outreach. That's the first thing. Second is going to be picking and identifying a market. Third is going to be pulling the data of the realtors. Fourth is then going to be going in and trying to niche down on specific lists, specific realtors, specific filters. So I think here there's a few different options. I don't recommend doing all of the filters, but try out a couple of them. One of the things that I've done for the last few years is halfway through the year, so June, if I can find a realtor that has sold over $3 million in listings or has 5 active listings, I think it's a really good list. Last week on Agent Outreach Live, we went in and we pulled a list of realtors that had sold, I think it was,
we did 3 active listings and 5 sold in the past 6 months, or a minimum of 5. Yeah.
And so I think if you could look in on this one saying 5 active listings, 5 might even be a lot. If you even pulled up 3 active listings, that would be a really good opportunity to see who is active in the marketplace. Obviously, there's a lot of updates and things that are going to be changing and growing in different variations and versions of Batch. But one of the coolest things right now is that you can actually see the entire list. Down the road, there's going to be abilities to sort out the data based off of who has the most amount of volume to who has the least amount of volume within the same parameters you filtered out. But the best part right now is that you have all of them. So there should be no limiting beliefs. There should be no restraints. If anything, it should almost be like a frenzy of just go after the opportunities, build the relationships. Because right here, is there a way we could see what the total amount is of people inside this list?
Yes. So let's see. So this was just simple of like people that have at least 3 active listings right now.
Yep.
And that's 223 in Phoenix.
So that's right 223 leads that we could go in and call with the expectation, obviously, that every agent doesn't answer their phone. They're out showing houses or whatever they're doing. But 223 opportunities of just 3 active listings in Phoenix. And remember, this is Phoenix specific. This is not counting other cities. This is not Arizona as a whole. For example, if we were to take off the city and we just put Arizona, would we be able to filter it out by the entire state?
I can't say for sure. We could do like Maricopa. I think we can do a county or a city.
Okay,
right let's do that.
Let's try that one.
Okay. So then this is,
that one's 14. It's going to be by the city.
Yeah.
So if you were to just, for example, show Scottsdale, Arizona, it would most likely pull up more than obviously the Phoenix. Phoenix had 223. This is just going to show you that other cities have other results.
499.
There's 499 in Scottsdale. So 499 Scottsdale realtors that have at least 3 active listings. What would that mean? Well, if there's active listings, that means that they are not only down in the trenches trying to prospect, they are actually converting. What I always say is like my infamous catchphrase is that the hardest part of being a realtor is to find a client. The hardest part of being an investor is to find a deal. So if you can understand agency and that they're trying to find clientele, and you can understand investors and they're trying to find opportunities, bridge the gap together, you are the investor, the agent might even be an agent investor, and together you guys can create a lot of money. So in this case, this is 3 active listings, Scottsdale, Arizona, realtors that are very active and obviously efficient with what they do. We could even go ahead and narrow this list down if we wanted to a little bit more. Now, obviously, I will just kind of put the disclaimer. What I think you should do is going to be going and making this list by list by list, and then possibly even stacking them to see which realtors appear in multiple lists. So for example, 3 active listings with 5 sold. Export the 3 active listings in one list, put the 5 sold in another list. Then you could go in and see, okay, well, this agent over here, John Doe, has actually sold 7 listings this year, but he also has 3 active. So that would mean John is consistent. So I think that's going to be important on top of, obviously, like I mentioned, one of the lists that we were polling. We were doing this before Batch Agent Outreach, but I was doing 5 to 6 listings sold on the year or $3 million in volume. The reason being was 1, it was easy for a title company to pull this data for me, and 2, similar to like I just said to you guys, this is going to be the easiest thing to actually identify that people are consistent in doing this business.
Yeah, let's try one of those other ones. Were you saying a minimum of like 3 million?
Yeah, let's try 3 million. And the reason I did that, I kind of just pulled that number because I was running what the active realtor count was average-wise, and it came out to about like $6 to $10 million on average for the year. So based on $6 million average in sales, that's a very high-producing realtor that is, I would even argue, above average. But $6 million in listings sold. If I could pull 3 million halfway through the year, they're on track for that 6 million total.
Oh, I see. Okay, so let's do that for the 6, right? You said for the past 6. Okay, let's do that. Yeah, so 596.
So those are all realtors that if they've sold over $3 million, and again, not to ever count anybody's pockets, because when you start looking at numbers, it's typically just the gross number. All different brokerages have different splits. Some people are on teams. Some of these people are team leads, and their agents are the one making most of the money on the commission. So in this case, the nice thing is, just for the sake of easy math, let's say it's $1 million, times that by 3%. That's about what the agent is making in commission. So $1 million in sold volume comes out to 30 grand. So if you could understand my math based off of $3 million, what is that, 90 grand on the year? That's halfway through. So they're on track to hit about $200,000 in gross revenue on the year. That's an agent that I need to be talking to. They are down talking to sellers, they're talking to buyers, they might even be an investor themselves, they might be buying properties for other investors. You don't know until you just call them. But once you could identify that they're active, I think it's worth the phone call. And on top of that too, I always kind of like try to give both sides of the angle here. You can call the people based on filters, but with that said, some of the best conversations I've also had are agents that are brand new that have never done a deal. So where I'm trying to go with the entire point is that the opportunity is in agent outreach. More importantly, the opportunity is within you. So how consistent are you going to be? How consistent are you going to be with pulling data? And how consistent are you going to be with making these phone calls? Aside from that, the rest of it truly is just a numbers game. I don't care if it's direct to seller. I don't care if it's agent outreach. I don't care if it's MLS. I don't care if it's JV, fix and flip, whatever it is you're trying to do. Everything around real estate is based on the numbers.
Love it. Yep. I think it's so great with all of the information that you do, like 2 filters. You don't have to skip trace these agents. You don't have to go and compile this list. That's one of the main purposes why we just added this directory right in BatchLeads. You don't have to go and struggle to, is this their direct phone number, and trying to get through to the brokerage instead. Of course, that's going to happen. But I mean, being able to, let's just open some of these people up, because this is some of the stuff we can never show on the live show on YouTube. So let's just say Carrie, for example, let's just see what, like when you're looking at this information, what this means to you. So let's look at the stats. So currently she doesn't have any active pending. This was off of $3 million in the past 6 months. She's sold 3.
Yep.
Okay.
But look at that. She sold 3 houses in the last 6 months, and she's done over $3 million. I mean, look at she's got a $4.3 million listing. Is that right? One listing sold in the past 12 months, 4.35. That's insane. So obviously, is that a realtor that's going to be very high volume quantity-wise? Probably not. But quality? Absolutely. And on top of that too, this is all based off of your buyers. A lot of what I always try to make sure is the point for you guys to understand is that you have to find your buyer first. So if you find your buyer first and you had someone that is like, I want to go in and buy luxury homes, whether that's fix and flip, buy and hold, or even as a primary home, guess who I'd probably want to call? Be Carrie. Now, if you found an agent that maybe had done 20 plus deals in the last 6 months that has 10 plus active listings and they're all in the price range of $400K, that's going to be money when it comes to like what most people are entry level homes, especially in Arizona. So it's all going to be situational. I always try to preach situational awareness. It's extremely hard to teach that. That is something that comes from doing the reps, putting in the time and the effort, energy to obviously just make the calls. But as you start to find your flow, you'll figure out what your identity is. That's what I always say too about our community, whether it's agent investors, just agent outreach in general. I think that you have to find the variation to what you're trying to accomplish. And what I mean by that, to take a step further, it's not just trying to be the person that tries to become Ryan Zolin. I love you and I appreciate you for all of the compliments you guys give. But if you're going to try to be me, it's not going to work. Just like if I tried to be somebody else, it wouldn't work for me. I tried direct to seller, didn't work for me. I have some friends that make millions of dollars direct to seller. I think that what I'm trying to say with variation wise, it's all going to be coming down to your personality and what you are okay doing consistently. So if you want to play in the luxury game, play in the luxury game. If you want to go do mobile homes, play in the mobile home game. Find what routine works best, and more importantly, what works for your buyers. Then you can reverse engineer the rest of it. And the coolest part about BatchLeads, while this is all about agent outreach, you can actually reverse prospect, skip trace people direct to seller. You can find buyers in here. You could actually even look at on-market deals. This is just icing on the cake. The agent outreach is something that we have been waiting for, and this is something that I know what other people charge for you to pull thousands of records of realtors. So if you could go in, and Landree, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could export, is it 10,000 per month?
It depends on your plan, and I will say I'm glad you brought that up. It does, like with seller, buyer, and agent leads, they're all kind of one and the same. So don't get too crazy, because if you're pulling leads in here too, like pull off, be conscientious of the amount you have in your plan each month, because this will count too. So
For
I will
sure.
say that to keep in mind, because then you're like, wait, I want to pull some leads.
I want to pull
I want to pull
10,000
some sellers
more,
too. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that the nicest part about the agent outreach is that the numbers are already there. So you don't have to go and skip trace those. You're just going to get an export limit. But the best part is that as you're exporting and you're able to build a database, there's not many people out there that are actually utilizing this yet. So if you can go out there and be one of the first, that means there's more opportunity for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's another, like, thinking about if you're in like property search, which we've talked about a couple times too, and I pull some buyers, like, why not just reach out to the agents? I don't have to skip trace them. I don't have to go through and try
It's
to
the
find
best
who
way
owns
to
that
do it.
LLC. How about I just call the agent? I already have their phone number in here.
Yep.
I don't have to pay anything for it. So anyway, I think it's just awesome. Let's
For
see
sure.
a little bit more. This is another tab that you guys won't be able to see like on the live show of the MLS tab. So we're still on carry just as an example. So I could go and see what those properties look like that Carrie has sold. Or if you're looking at somebody that has a bunch of active listings, what do those look like? If they have those active listings, I found a couple going through this of definitely people that work with investor specials, like all of that within their description, where you can just dive right into
Beautiful
stuff
home.
like this. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Carrie's in the luxury. So like you guys could go into the MLS tab, and I think that this is a really, obviously without having to get too crazy detailed and analysis paralysis, because it's easy to do that in here. You click
So
on
much
something
data.
and you're like, oh, like what could this be? You know, what data could I get on this? I need to know everything before I call, which obviously is not the case. But if you did want the extra information, it's literally all here in front of you, which, you know, you can get super deep into it. So just to give you guys an idea of being able to see the description on that, and this can also help you find those active listings that could be potential
sure.
pocket listings too.
There is so many different filters when it comes to agent outreach. And so the fact that Batch was able to simplify it and put it into really, I mean, it's 3 major ones: the active listings, the sold listing amount, or sold volume amount. With those 3 alone, you shouldn't have anything withholding you from going and actually taking action. I think that if you were trying to go more on that broad scale, try to go by city, try to go by specific brokerages. Now, be mindful as well, if you're going to call brokerages, the odds of you calling a smaller brokerage where there's only, let's call it less than 100 agents, a lot of them are going to chat and they're going to know that you're calling multiple people in the office. So pros and cons, obviously, on each side. What I've been doing is pulling based on the city. The reason being is that, again, I was paying a lot of money previously to be able to go and pull the lists of data. So instead, now having it accessible within Batch, it's just kind of making my life a lot easier.
I'm sure that keeps that more organized too, and just really knowing the markets
Definitely.
of where those agents are and the deals that you could do with certain people. So, and you guys can save this stuff too. So if I was like, you know what, let's say, you know, like when we're on the show, a lot of the time behind the scenes, Ryan has a good conversation with somebody and I save them. I make a note of, you know, how that went, just so we can kind of keep track of the connections that Ryan's making. You could come in here and change the status of, you know, that agent, and if you're connecting with them, and just kind of have that organized, because you don't need to push this agent out into a CRM. You have it right here. It's not like you're, like you said, you have 40 agents. You're not going to be having this list of 500 agents that you need to have and get crazy with it, you know. So
And then the notes tab, is that where you're making the notes every time?
yeah, so if you guys saw the difference there, you have to save it to get the notes tab, but as soon as you do, then you can start making the notes, check your activity so you can kind of see, and in certain plans, just kind of side note, I have my microphone turned off, but you can use click to dial in here in your certain plan. So if you wanted to just kind of get through your calls and call through your computer, in BatchLeads, you could do that potentially, but not necessary, just
And
kind of a
let's
bonus.
show one more market really fast if we can. Like let's do Atlanta, because Atlanta's a good one.
Okay. And by the way, if you're wondering where I'm getting these filters, I didn't really call it out. It's this tiny little toggle button for you to get into these advanced filters. So did you say Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to type in Atlanta, Georgia. It's obviously a very high investor activity market. We are then going to do, let's take off the sold and let's do active listings of 3, and let's do sold listings, kind of like what we did in the last show. Let's do 5.
Okay.
So 3 active listings currently, at least 5 sold minimum in the last 6 months.
Okay.
Now we're in Atlanta, and if we scroll down to the bottom,
282.
there's 282. So again, imagine if you're in multiple markets. What if you are a wholesaler that's trying to do deals virtually? What if you are an agent in your local market and you just want to see what competition you have? There's opportunity for you to go and filter this out and be able to become true collaborative people as opposed to competitive. So what we're trying to create within community, obviously, is going to be showing you guys not just from example, but literally detail in the data. You could go in and skip trace, whether it's direct to seller or finding buyers, or you could go directly to agent, which is obviously my strategy. And you could go out there and you could try to build these relationships with agents that are in your local markets. We're showing you could do this anywhere in the country, and also we're in Arizona right now. So being able to pull information in Atlanta, that's kind of our whole goal of the Agent Outreach live show. We want to be able to show you guys that you can come in, ask questions live, get your questions answered, but also too, challenge me. Give me a market that maybe is one that seems a little bit harder, or if it's your local market and you're just struggling, we are here to help you. I want to be the one that could show you that you could do this strategy too, and even if it is just a stepping stone. I think Agent Outreach is the best place to start within real estate, solely based on the fact that it doesn't break the bank. If I had had a tool like BatchLeads when I first started that could get me all the agent information, I'd have a lot more money. So.
Oh my gosh, I know, game changer. Instead of walking around with a pad of paper, and everything.
You are preaching right now. That was, so I always tell people when I first started with this strategy, my first $250,000 year, just to kind of put it in perspective, it was one of those like flip notebook pad, whatever things, like notepads, and then I had my cell phone and I had a Google spreadsheet. So there was no organization, there was no filtered agents like this. It was basically John Doe, John Smith, number, email, notes. When was the last time I talked to them? When's the next time I talk to them? What brokerage are they with? Hot, warm, or cold? Like that was legitimately my follow-up process. And so now having it all in one.
Oh my gosh, and it's so crazy too with you saying that, and anybody that didn't have these tools before, and then I'll show you guys how to save this and get it off your account too. But, all the things that we have where, with you getting started, you literally had like nothing to go off of, but not having any excuse, kind of thing,
gosh.
I think is so huge, especially with all of the technology that we have nowadays at our fingertips, when before it wasn't like that at all. And you got to make the moves. You still have to take action.
100%.
So much easier nowadays. Like, wow. That's crazy.
It's 2023, and we can do whatever you want in real estate, and it is literally at your fingertips.
Yes. So let's just select this. We're not going to click on any of these, just since you kind of saw the info for you to be able to do this and take the action yourself. But I'm going to just select this first page of Atlanta agents, and we're going to click save if you wanted to do this. Obviously, ideally, you might want to be kind of going through the list. I feel like kind of the way that Ryan and I are doing it is, I don't have that list saved every time before we are calling them. I kind of just save them as we have a good conversation and make that note.
I think that's super important too, because rather than wasting
like your storage space and everything, why?
For sure.
Yeah, like just make note of, like, we have a list of all of the hearted ones. Yeah, of all the good conversations Ryan had. So why take up all the room when you can just have all the info?
But if you wanted to save it,
then you can. Yeah, and you do have to save it to export it. So keep that in mind. So let's see. Let's create a new list, and let's do Atlanta agents.
And then you could even put a tag on that as well. So if you were going and exporting the data and maybe putting it into a different CRM or just putting it into wherever you wanted, to have a tag is always going to be helpful, especially if you're trying to go out there and scale the business.
Yeah, maybe if maybe I just got done calling like these 15 agents or what have you, and I make a tag of, connection
top
I made,
agents or what. And honestly, what I'd even recommend too is, as you export it, as you're favoriting the agents, export those with like a hot tag, a cold tag, a warm tag, or if you're in agent investors, put them based on the tier that they're in, tiers 1 through 5.
Oh yeah. We talked about that this past week, and that was super valuable. I think that's a great idea. Okay, so then once you have them saved, you're just going to still be in the same agent outreach page, but then you'll go to your list filters. You can see I have a bunch of list of agents, of very few on each of them. But then here's my Atlanta agents, and there's that page I just saved. So all you have to do to pull this off of your account is just select them, click actions, and then export. You can always add a tag. You can always add people to your favorites or change the lead status like Ryan's talking about. So if I wanted to add these, to my hot list because I just got done talking to them, and let's say they all happen to be great conversations, just for example, you can do that to make your life a little bit easier. But click actions, click export. Pick the pieces of info. What do you care about, by the way? Usually when we're doing this, if I do pull it off, I just grab their basic stuff.
So I'm going to go through what I had when I was first doing it off of a spreadsheet. But it's going to be agent first name, agent last name, primary phone number, agent email address, and that's about it. If I wanted to add one other thing, maybe the name of the brokerage, but what matters most to me is what day did I contact them, when is my next follow-up date, and then any notes on the conversation that I had. So that way they're obviously not falling through the cracks. And then most important, money's in the follow-up. So a lot of times while realtors tell us they're going to put us on a list, which we don't love, or they're going to tell us that they're going to reach back out when they find something, it doesn't always happen. And on top of that, in this current day and age, everybody's contacting realtors trying to find deals. So how do you stay front of mind? You take responsibility and accountability and you reach out to them. So.
Love it. Okay, great. So we'll keep it simple. Click next. Name it. We'll just name it Atlanta Agents once again.
Beautiful.
If I can spell today. There we go. Click next and it will start working and it will be in your reports. So grab the list and then it'll be in the import export, and there will be a little bit of a different section just so it keeps all of your sellers and buyers separate from your agents. So you can see right here, here's my Atlanta agents that I pulled in earlier, my import logs and my export logs. So I would just pull it off, download it just like so. So
and there it is.
Easy.
It downloaded. So guys, that is how simple BatchLeads has made it for agent outreach. At the end of the day, again, I keep mentioning transparency. We want to help. We want to show you guys. And at the end of the day, we can't go in and do everything on YouTube because of restrictions.
Yes.
So if we can put together a quick little video like this to show you guys how to actually use the system inside and out, the only thing that's left is for you to go out there and take action.
All right, well, there you guys have it. We're super excited to hopefully see more of you on Tuesdays. We do it every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Arizona time. It might change depending on your time zone, but make sure that you're in the community asking questions and being there to get them answered by Ryan.